Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Taylor Sheridan's The Madison can finally tell a forgotten Yellowstone story after Kevin Costner's John Dutton died. The Madison, another upcoming series in Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone universe, can follow up on a vital part of John Dutton's legacy. Yellowstone Season 5, Part 2 opens with John's death, answering the question about how Kevin Costner's Yellowstone exit would be explained in the show's final chapter. His death was allegedly self-inflicted, according to the readily available evidence at the scene. Still, thanks to Case Dutton's, Luke Grimes' keen investigative skills, the news ultimately broke after Yellowstone Season 5, Episode 11, that someone else killed John. Case answers his and Beth's, Kelly Riley, questions by uncovering the true nature of John's death. Moreover, he preserves John's legacy. While John never wanted to be the governor of Montana, the falsified story of his death eclipsed his achievement, as Beth notes in Yellowstone Season 5. While owning the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch was ultimately John's true legacy, he was still Montana's governor. Likewise, while he was Beth and Case's father, John Dutton meant something to everyone else in Montana, and the Madison can tell that story. The Madison will follow Michelle Pfeiffer as Stacy Clyburn, the head of the Clyburn family, seemingly departing from the Dutton family tree. Still, its status as a Yellowstone spin-off means the Madison's characters exist in the same universe as John Dutton. Therefore, John is the former governor of Montana in the Madison. Since the modern-day spin-off will pick up shortly after Yellowstone Season 5, the Clyburn family will emerge in a state that has recently lost its leader. The Madison could explain the state's climate after its governor's death, including what its citizens think of the clamor. Yellowstone Season 5, Part 2, focuses on how John's death affects his family. Case and Beth's journey in the fallout is what the final chapter is meant to be about, so it makes sense that Sheridan wouldn't deviate much from their story. Still, it would be interesting to see how John's constituents feel about his passing, especially after it was ruled a homicide. It feels essential to know whether the majority of the population mourned him or if John's actions, which caused Jamie, Wes Bentley, to impeach him, had tainted his standing. Now, I don't think the Madison story needs to devote a lot of time to explaining how John Dutton's murder affects Montana's population, and I anticipate the spin-off will tell a story that exists independently. Still, I imagine that words about John's death as the state's governor could be exchanged between characters in passing, like when a main character visits a convenience store and sees something about John in the newspaper, prompting a simple yet informative conversation. It makes sense that the event would be big news around the state, especially as the investigation continues. Due to its controversial and developing nature, it doesn't make sense to ignore it completely, and the Madison would be wrong to do so. After Yellowstone Season 5's finale, the investigation into the murder is still underway. While major developments in John's case will probably be reserved for Beth and Rip's Cole Hauser Yellowstone spinoff, since Case Dutton's spinoff will be a CBS procedural, the Madison has a neat opportunity to fill in details the flagship lacked the time to explore. Plus, I assume Pfeiffer's Stacy Clyburn would have thoughts about the news upon moving to the state. The air over Montana has never felt more uncertain. As the dust settles on Yellowstone's final chapter for John Dutton, Kevin Costner's ironclad patriarch whose weather hands held the Dutton legacy together like old barbed wire, Taylor Sheridan isn't closing the gates to the ranch just yet. Instead, with the Madison, he might finally be ready to pull a story from the shadows, one that's waited too long for its moment in the sun. For years, the Dutton name cast a long, stubborn shadow over Montana. Through 5 seasons of Yellowstone, the family's power and pain bled across generations, like cattle branded by tragedy. But now that the king is gone, his legacy burned into the soil, his death a quiet, thunderous end, the crown has no obvious heir. Beth's fire can't light forever. Casey's soul is torn between blood and peace. Jamie, lost in the storm he helped stir. But the Madison isn't about the hares, it's about what's been left behind. Sheridan has always been a storyteller with a reverence for forgotten voices, the people who live in the background of power, whose stories never make the headlines. With the Madison, he's cracking open the shell of the Dutton Empire to reveal the people who once lived in the valleys and hills before the Duttons built their cattle kingdom. It's a different lens, a shift in the camera. Not a continuation, but a reckoning. This is the story Yellowstone never told. The Forgotten Voices of Montana. Long before John Dutton's father carved out his territory, long before land was divided with rifles and court papers, Madison Valley was alive with stories untold. Sheridan hinted at this deeper history before, in the Native American struggle portrayed through Thomas Rainwater's character, and in the deep ache of ancestral loss, but those narratives were always forced to orbit the Dutton sun. Now with the Madison, the solar system is shifting. This could be the chance to center Native voices in a way that Yellowstone only scratched. The Madison Valley is sacred land, and a story set here could finally follow characters like the ancestors of Thomas Rainwater, not as side plots, but as protagonists, as land stewards, as survivors, as warriors of memory. Imagine a young tribal leader trying to reclaim what was once lost, not just land, but identity. Imagine her crossing paths with remnants of the Dutton dynasty, a hired ranch hand who once worked under Rip Wheeler, now disillusioned and drifting. Their tension, their alliance, could be the soul of the Madison, a show not about reclaiming legacy, but redefining it. After the Duttons, a power vacuum. The death of John Dutton didn't just leave a hole in the family. It tore open the entire political and cultural landscape of Montana. Without John's grit holding off developers, there's a rush to fill the vacuum. Greedy developers, opportunistic politicians, new ranchers with tech money and no roots, they're all coming. The Madison could follow this gold rush of the modern West, showing how rural communities struggle to hold their culture amid gentrification. Think Yellowstone meets Chinatown. Water rights, zoning battles, oil leases, it's not just about cows anymore, it's about survival. And somewhere in the middle, a young woman who grew up idolizing the Dutton myth. She watched from afar as Beth Dutton burned the world and Case tried to save it. Now, she's inherited her father's small cattle, spread just outside Ennis, Montana, barely 100 acres, nothing compared to the Yellowstone Ranch, but it's hers, and it's under siege. The Madison could finally explore how ordinary ranchers lived in the shadow of the Duttons. What happened to them while the Duttons were playing chess with governors and militia groups? These stories deserve daylight. The ghosts of the past, but Sheridan won't forget the Duttons entirely. Even in death, John Dutton's presence could haunt the Madison. Maybe there are flashbacks, glimpses of a younger John, ruthless and magnetic. Maybe Beth appears in a rare episode, now a shadow of her former self, walking the perimeter of what's left of the family's land. Maybe Rip's legend lives on in whispered stories at local bars. The past will bleed into the present, Sheridan's signature move, but it won't dominate. The Madison is a ghost story, yes, but the ghosts don't run the ranch anymore. This new world doesn't have time for kings. The Sheridan formula, reimagined Taylor Sheridan, has never been afraid to evolve. With 1883 and 1923, he flexed his Western muscle. With Mayor of Kingstown and Tulsa King, he showed he could leap genres. But the Madison could be his most personal work yet, a quieter, more intimate tale. Less about dynasty, more about community. Less war, more wilderness.